When Jermaine O'Neal walked into the Golden State Warriors facility in 2013, he wasn't there to be a star. His all-star years were behind him. His high-flying days in Indiana were in the rearview mirror. This was his 18th season in the league. At this point in his career, Jermaine O'Neal was brought in not to score 20 and grab 10, but to mentor, to be a vet, a leader, a presence in the locker room. But what he didn't expect to find was two young guards, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, doing things he'd never seen before. Not in Portland, not in Indiana, not in Miami, Boston, or Phoenix. What Jermaine saw in Golden State that year changed his perspective forever. This was the exact moment Jermaine O'Neal realized that Steph Curry and Klay Thompson weren't just talented, they were special, legendary, and generational.
Curry gets an opening, fires away, got it again!
Why is he skipping some of these makes? He said, no, if they hit the rim, it don't count.
He's got it, his three.
I said, do not break this team up.
So let's set the stage. It's the 2013-2014 NBA season. Steph Curry had already shown flashes, that silky jumper, those lightning quick handles, and that unlimited range. But people still doubted him. They said he was too small, too fragile, couldn't lead a team. Klay Thompson was emerging as a two-way player, a smooth shooter with a textbook release and quiet confidence. But he wasn't a star yet. The Warriors, they were fun, but unproven. So in came Jermaine O'Neal, six-time All-Star, one of the original preps to pro phenoms, a guy who had been around the block and then some. He was there to be a mentor, but what he witnessed blew him away. Jermaine told the story on the Out the Mud podcast. He walked into the gym for the first time, and there, on opposite ends of the court, were Steph and Klay. They weren't goofing off, they weren't at half speed, they weren't just getting up some shots, they were locked in. He stops, watches, observes, and he hears Steph counting out loud, 1, 2, 3. Then silence. Steph hits another shot, no count. Another one, no count. O'Neal walks over and asks, "Why did you stop counting?" And Steph responds, "If it hits the rim, it doesn't count." Let that sink in. Steph Curry, already an elite shooter, was so obsessed with perfection, he only counted shots that didn't touch the rim. Swishes only. No rattles, no lucky bounces. This wasn't just practice, this was repetition with intention. Precision at the highest level. Steph wasn't just getting in reps, he was perfecting a craft, sharpening a weapon. And it wasn't just Steph. Klay was doing the same thing on the opposite end. He was locked in, focused, silent. It wasn't a coincidence. This was the culture. This was the commitment. This was something different. O'Neal had played alongside some of the game's best. He shared a front court with prime Shaq in Miami. He played with Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett in Boston. He battled Kobe, Duncan, and Dirk. He had seen greatness. But this, two young guys still trying to prove themselves, shooting hundreds of threes before and after practice, and only counting the ones that don't hit the rim. That wasn't normal. As Jermaine put it, that's serious reps, bro. And it wasn't just the shooting, it was the chemistry. O'Neal expected egos, young players jockeying for shots, contracts, and clout. That's usually how it goes in the league.
And it was strange because, you get a young team and a bunch of young players, they're going to start bumping heads because contracts coming up, cap space is in full effect, and they were just like this, bruh.
When you're building something, the locker room can get tense. Personal goals clash with team goals, but what he saw in Golden State was unheard of. They were like this, just like this, he said. Steph, Klay, Draymond, they weren't bumping heads, they were building together. They were hungry, they were unselfish, they were all locked in. After the Warriors lost to the Clippers in the first round, Jermaine went straight to then GM Bob Myers, and he said something that would age like fine wine.
Bob Myers always says this on television. I went to him before I left. I said, Bob, whatever you do, we had just lost against the Clippers. I said, do not break this team up. I said, y'all got something with these boys because I done been in, that was like my 18th year. So I done been in a lot of locker rooms, bro, and I ain't seen this with young players.
He had seen it all. 18 years, 6 teams, all sorts of locker rooms. But this group, he had never seen this with young players. This level of work, consistency, hunger, and desire. He saw it before the rest of the world did. He saw a dynasty in the making, and he was right. The Warriors made 5 straight NBA Finals. They won 3 championships in 5 years. Klay and Steph became known as the greatest shooting backcourt in NBA history. They didn't just win, they changed the game. And they went on to be a dynasty after their 2022 title. You live and die by the 3, people would say. You couldn't win championships relying on jump shots. That was the rule. But Steph and Klay rewrote the rules. They proved you could build a dynasty around the deep ball. They proved you didn't need to dominate the paint to dominate the scoreboard. They didn't need post-ups. They didn't need isolation. All they needed was a sliver of daylight, and that was enough. Because they practiced the shot until it wasn't just second nature, it was perfect. So let's go back to that quote. If it hits the rim, it doesn't count. That's not just detail, that's an ethos. It's the kind of mentality that separates great players from legends. It's the tiny, invisible decisions, the little standards you set when no one is watching. That's the real grind. Not the highlights, not the accolades, but the reps, the hours in the gym, swish after swish after swish. Not until you get it right, but until you get it wrong and course correct again. And that's what Jermaine O'Neal saw all those years ago. He saw 2 young men humble, hungry, and wired for greatness. He saw Steph, the son of an NBA sharpshooter, take his inherited gift and elevate it. He saw Klay, the silent assassin, put in the work without saying a word. Together they were unstoppable. Together they became icons, and now, years later, we know how the story turned out. Steph Curry, 4-time NBA champion, 2 times MVP, all-time leader in 3-pointers made. Klay Thompson, 4-time NBA champion, one of the greatest catch-and-shoot players in league history, holder of multiple shooting records including 37 points in a single quarter and 14 threes in one game, and arguably the second greatest shooter ever. Both will be Hall of Famers. That's not a debate, that's a fact. They didn't just stack up stats, they inspired a generation. How many kids now pull up from deep because of Steph? How many young players practice with that quiet focus that Klay had? How many teams built their offense around spacing because of these 2? Jermaine O'Neal saw it before we did. He felt it in that gym. He heard it in Steph's voice. He watched it in their habits, and he knew. These 2, they weren't just shooters. They were architects of the modern game, craftsmen of a new style, championships of a different era. So the next time you watch Steph drill a logo 3 or Klay erupt for 20 points in a quarter, remember that moment, that quiet gym, that single sentence. If it hits the rim, it doesn't count. That's where greatness begins, in the shadows, in the silence, and in the details. So here's the big takeaway. The difference between good and great, between great and legendary, isn't talent, it's standards. It's what you demand of yourself when no one else is watching. Steph and Klay didn't wait for the spotlight, they earned it, one perfect shot at a time. And that's why O'Neal was right. He saw it coming, he said it first, and the rest, well, that's history. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button, drop a comment below. What's your favorite Splash Brothers moment? And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into NBA history, player legacies, and the stories that shape the game. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.